Welcome everybody again to a session from the lab tonight, or rather today. I guess we're digging into something that's the first of hopefully a long series of grabbing onto some of the music that was broadcast from a club in Cambridge in the 80s, mostly. I guess it existed a little bit in the 70s, called the 1369, that I believe is reflective of its address. And where there were many sets played there, many hundreds and even thousands. We're going to visit with Johnny Griffin, the tenor player. I'm delighted to point out, I hope this enriches the conversation rather than causing people to just sit back and listen to him, but to point out that like a jerk, it took me till only 2 hours ago to send a note out to Michael Weiss and to Kenny Washington, who are on the recording we're going to listen to today, and say, yo, I forgot about this, but you guys might want to join in here. And lo and behold, here these geniuses show up and actually want to, I assume, hear what they sounded like 36 years ago, and maybe and maybe even tell us a little bit about it. This is the rough transfer of, or direct transfer, I should say, of something that was rather roughly recorded. And one hopes that there's some insider tapes that are better than this that we might come across at some point. But for the moment, this is what's nailing it down from the broadcast. I want to say on WERS, was that over at Emerson? Way back when. Should have been just a little bit after the gig with, I'm going to say, and I think this is true, Johnny Griffin on tenor, Michael Weiss on piano, Kenny Washington on drums, and let's say Curtis Lundy on bass. Johnny Griffin Quartet at the 1369, getting it started with a blues item. Anybody got a name for that blues? I don't recognize it, but maybe my chops are down on Johnny Griffin in that period.
What's that called, Kenny?
I have no idea, man. He used to play it. He used to play it all the time. That would probably because Michael was new in the band, he gave us a break because he would usually play I mean, I can't remember the name. He used to start with it all the time.
So
I can't remember what it's called.
You're saying that tempo was like the nice tempo?
He was being a nice guy.
Oh.
He was being a nice guy, man. Because I'm telling you, I mean, yeah, yeah. If you could get through the first tune with him, then you were cool. But that first tune, man, I mean, he used to play it like this. Yeah. 1, 2, so.
Yeah.
But the amazing thing about Griff, man, I mean, listen, man, Griff doesn't get the recognition due to him. He never did, unfortunately. Maybe a lot of it had to do with him going to Europe, but Europe saved his life. But one thing I will say, with all due respect to John Coltrane and everything, Johnny Griffin was playing the sheets of sound way before Coltrane was even on the scene, man. And that's nothing. I'm not taking anything away from John Coltrane. He was certainly, a genius and a master. But Griff, man, the thing I loved about Griff was his rhythm. And he would go on. It was just like turning on a water faucet. And he would just go on chorus after chorus after chorus, man. I mean, not repeating himself, idea after idea after idea. The way his time, man, he used to say he played nervous, which he got from Art Tatum.
He played nervous?
Yeah, he always used to say that. So I play nervous.
Meaning he's playing a lot, you're saying?
Yeah. And his rhythm was like bouncing off all the walls. But the time was there. I mean, that was the most fun, man, is playing with him, man, because, like he knew, and he, of course, because he was influenced by Don Byas and Coleman Hawkins and Art Tatum, man, he could play through all kinds of changes, man. I mean, he was amazing, man. He doesn't get the credit due to him, really. I mean, saxophone players nowadays, they don't pay too much attention to him because his stuff is too hard to play, man.
His articulation.
Yeah.
Was really unique. I mean, he's spraying you with a Tommy gun of eighth note, but the articulation is so clean. That's, I think, when Kenny's talking about his rhythm, he's like spitting it out, slapping you all around with that very intense articulation, but he balances that with this great lyricism as well. It's like through these, barrages of eighth notes, he also has this very lyrical, almost Prez-like type of phrasing that he balances that out with. And when he talks about nervous, I think, if we hear something at a medium tempo, you'll really hear this, where the unpredictability of the flow of his ideas and how his rhythm, he was such a challenge to accompany because he was so unpredictable where he was going to go. He had his favorite little quotes and stuff, and he was pretty consistent with those. And when you heard those coming, you could set them up and so forth. But in general, the flow of ideas was so unpredictable that he kind of lunged at things, and you just didn't know what he was going after next. It's kind of like a gnat that flies in the air. That's like, it goes at a certain pace and all of a sudden it darts here and it darts there. Very unpredictable. And that might describe that sort of, nervous quality, but I think just his irrepressible energy and spirit, it was so infectious, and how do you follow that? I mean, after a solo like that, It's really like being thrown into the cauldron. You just have no choice but to step up. And this is after you've been slapped around for 8-10 minutes. Now you've got to blow and rise to the occasion. It was an exhilarating challenge. Every song, every tour, every year, every night.
Yeah. This is actually, I want to pick up on this comment that Graham's making in the chat that as you two are talking, especially, I'm reminded, like, I can't think of a weak set by Johnny Griffin. And I wonder if you've both experienced Wash. I know you've experienced hundreds and thousands of them even. Did Griffin have a bad night?
For the most part, no. Sometimes, sometimes I remember one time with Ray Drummond and Ronnie Matthews, he'd had too many cups, man. And he got to the and he was just calling tunes. And I remember he counted off Star Eyes. And the way he played through those changes sounded like Star Wars. Ronnie Matthews and Griffin, I mean, we looked at each other like, but he was so much fun to be around, and he just had a little bit too much to drink.
Sure.
The next morning, this was in Europe, 7:00 in the morning, man. He bangs on my door. So, who is it? Young talent, open up the door. Young talent, open up. I open up the door. He says, I'm giving what's the guy that he says, I'm giving the guy that takes the bags of the room. He gave him the stuff he had to drink. And he says, I'm cleaning up. I'm pure cold sober. He got on the gig that night, and that was the first tune that he called was Star Eyes. Man, he tore that shit up, man.
Yeah.
But for the most part, man, I travel with him all over the world, 3 and 4 planes, and stupid ass Wimwick and all his bullshit, messed up tours, missing flights because the tickets weren't together. One thing about Johnny Griffin and Ronnie Matthews, well, all of us for that matter, Griff didn't care about any of that. When it's time to hit, it's time to hit. I know he didn't care how tired you were or anything. He would just, so that, and the first number would be, that would be the first, all the time. And he never missed, man.
He never missed. Like, difficult travel itinerary or stuff. I mean, when I think about it now, I was such a little bitch because I was so pissed off at some of these terrible arrangements that the promoter, but he never said shit. That was it was a really good lesson for me to just shut the fuck up.
Well, he was a very nice man. I mean, actually, he was too nice.
Mm.
He and we got into it a couple of times because I couldn't believe, man, what he was going for. And it'd be so much, especially, that's why I stopped going to Europe, man. I mean, at the last part, I refused to go over there with him because people would do things, man, and he knew it wasn't right, but he would, he wouldn't say anything, man, and that angered me, man. I mean, but man, when it came to playing, man,
nothing affected his playing really, except if he just had a little too much to drink.
Yeah.
And what would happen is he would be he might slur he had a little less control with his embouchure, but what it did was it made him want to play more. It made him want to play longer. And we had 2 sets in Ann Arbor, Michigan that were 2.5 hours each.
The same night?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was 2.5 hours. It's like he just didn't want to stop. He just loved to play.
Yeah. He's bad, man. Bad dude, man.
Yeah.
Really.
Hey, for those of you who are just tuning in, we'll have some people checking in all through the afternoon. I'm sure we're going to listen to some Johnny Griffin sounds from the 1369 Club in Cambridge. We sort of have gone through a little bit of it, and there's a lot more to listen to. And we're delighted that Michael Weiss, the pianist, and Kenny Washington, the drummer on the date, are able to join in, listen with us, listen back to themselves, and obviously bring some great commentary about what the road life was like with Johnny Griffin. If you're planning out your afternoon and evening, I think we'll go for about an hour and a half more in this mode, and then probably take a little dinner break of just some Griff sounds merged in with Lionel Hampton sounds until 6:30, and then do a sort of more focused layout of the Lionel Hampton Big Band and what it brought to the scene in the top of the 40s from 6:30 until 8:30, or actually until 8, I guess, and then keep rolling from there. So it's, as usual, a whole afternoon and evening of music that starts with this session from the lab. And we're in the middle of this recording from a broadcast, from a recording, from a gig that all belong to, I think, Michael, that our information agrees with yours. I'm gonna have to go put hands on it in a second, but October of 1985 sounds just right for the band that Kenny Washington was the straw boss of, putting the groups together for Johnny Griffin returning to his home country to make some short tours, such as a week at the 1369, or I assume it was a week, perhaps it was just a long weekend.
I think it was just one night, maybe two.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, part of
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I don't think it was.
He would do New York for a week. Then we would go, play the Vanguard or maybe the Blue Note sometime. Then he would play Boston. I play Boston. Sometimes it was just that, but then or we go to Chicago, which was his hometown, so it was always big fun there. He would come to New York for about, it depending, when I first started working with him, well, as management and things changed, those tours got shorter, but he would come for a couple of weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks or something. Yeah.
My first tour in '87, we did 5 or 6 weeks straight. In fact, we had 11 one-nighters in a row
Oh,
to start. And we always, in a week in New York, a week in Chicago, and often on a week or two on the West Coast. First year, that tour in '87, we did a 2-tenor week in Chicago with Joe Henderson, and then we went to Yoshi's in California with Joe also.
wow. You're saying alternating sets for their two groups?
No,
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 he played
played
with us. He played with us.
Man, where are the tapes of that?
Joe Siegel's got him, or Joe Siegel had him, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
That happened every year, because Joe Siegel's birthday, Joe Henderson's birthday, and Griff's birthday were all in the same week. So that became a thing when we would go down and play with, and they would play together.
All right, man. That's going to be matter for further research that hopefully will bring us some more sounds to the lab one day soon.
Yeah, those tapes exist. They
Okay.
exist.
Yeah. Was Siegel recording all the time, you think, in Chicago at the
Yeah.
what was it?
He probably was.
Yep, he was. So his, Wayne, his son, has all the tapes, not the best quality. He was doing stuff on cassette or whatever he could for the most part. But yeah, all that stuff, certainly the week when we was in Chicago, because we came play Chicago, I played Chicago. Michael, you might have been there. We played with Jaws there too when they came back together again.
I wish.
Man, that was fun,
Before
man.
me.
Man, those were good times, man. I'm telling you, man.
That would have been a special treat.
That was something, man. I mean, to do that, we would do that once a year, man.
Yeah.
And the party would start on Tuesday and it would go straight through to Sunday. Man, and I used to sit up there, man, after there would be so many people crawling out of the woodwork, man. It was so mean, man, that Gene Ammons' wife, Red Top, the tune Red Top, she would show up, man, because Chicago's a tenor town. All these people would come out and there would be a party up in Griff's room. He stayed at his mother's house, but he also had a room at the hotel and at the Blackstone. And man, so during the break, or certainly after the set was over, Jaws, Griff, all these people from that Griff knew as a kid, old tenor players, people would come up and man, they'd sit up there and talk trash, man. And I mean, and I'd be sitting up there, I'd be so sick from laughing at them, man. There was so much shit talking, it was ridiculous, man. I was crying, man. And then we'd have dinner, then we'd have well, brunch or lunch or maybe almost dinner at Johnny Griffin's mother's house. And she could cook her ass off, man. Between her and
Like a
Lita.
Thanksgiving dinner. It was equivalent
man.
to a Thanksgiving dinner on Saturday afternoon, and
Yeah.
they cook all day. And a lot of Johnny's high school buddies were there, and that would include Wilbur Campbell, Pat Patrick, George Freeman, E. Parker McDougal.
Yep.
Um,
Reverend Vance, he would bless the table.
that's
This was the hippest reverend I had ever met, man. John Young, what's his name? The piano.
Willie
Jody
Pickens.
Christian.
Willie Pickens and his wife would come.
Yeah, Willie Pickens. Man, I mean, this would happen yearly, man. And then we'd have to play that night, and we'd be so wiped out from all that great food we ate, man. I mean, but I mean, it was man. Those were great times, man.
Yeah.
You know, great times. Boy.
The following year, we played the Chicago Jazz Festival, and we followed Sun Ra's band. But after our set, it was supposed to be all Chicago tenor all-stars. So everybody made it. They had Von Freeman, Eddie Harris, Griff, Clifford Jordan, E. Parker McDougal, and the sixth tenor was supposed to be John Gilmore, but at the last minute, Sun Ra nixed it. He wouldn't let him play with us.
Wow.
But that was a great experience.
That would have
Those
been something.
great times, man. Great times.